Welcome to the Sedona Soul Sister Show, down-to-earth discussions on metaphysics, spirituality, paranormal, and healing topics. The Sedona Soul Sisters are the most trusted psychic mediums in Sedona, Arizona. We are Rosalind Reynolds, myself, Ivory Lanou, Terry Ann Russell, and we also have Robert Markham who'll be popping in, and we have Anya Sophia who'll be joining the show next month. We have offices in Sedona, Arizona, where we see clients from all over the world. Today's topic is, when has life become too complex? I think I found that out. I think I ran into the wall recently. Anybody else get that feeling like you just sort of were running full speed and hit a wall? Ugh.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. I think that's a really good question to be asking ourselves lately. And to me, it's one of the big wake up calls that COVID gave us was more downtime. So we couldn't socialize as much or didn't chose not to. We had more time for contemplation, introspection, thinking about our lives. And I thought I was going to go crazy at the beginning of the pandemic because I'm used to a busy social life. And then I realized I really liked that more time to myself, more quiet time. Anybody else find themselves feeling that way? Really? You
I'm not that,
always liked it though.
yeah, I'm not that social anyway, but I just have to really focus on balance and always keeping my schedule so that my rest time, my calm time, and my work time and my is pretty lined up well. And because otherwise I just get too tired, too run down, too, you know, the brain is overworked. So I have to
for
exercise caution.
for us, the work that we do, if we have busy days seeing a number of clients or they're very intense sessions, I find myself really needing that recharge time just by myself, quiet, not having other people's energy around me. Because even if they're wonderful people, it can be tiring when I'm feeling like that.
Well, and
Absolutely.
yeah, empathically, we're just very sensitive. You got to be aware of that.
I don't see any hands going up, but Terry Ann, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about since the beginning. Remember, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, COVID, COVID," and we were like, "It's a good thing." So we go back. I mean, gosh, when you think about it, it's almost 2 years now that we're going through this, and so I think for a lot of people, the beginning was really hard, but the period where we are now is really difficult because as they're waking up, as they're starting to see that their world around them doesn't exist anymore, the world that they thought existed in front of them, that illusion is now dissipating. And I've talked to many people, family, friends, clients. They all say the same thing. It's sort of like they're like a duck out of water all of a sudden. Nothing is working right. They go to a business and they're short staffed, or they go somewhere and there's rules here but not rules here. And so people are really looking for that space within themselves now because they can't really look outside of them anymore. And I think the blinders have come off. I'm really, really happy that we're at this point, even though it is really hard.
That's funny. I think for me, it's pretty easy because I just go with the flow. So if there's not a lot of staff, I don't even bother thinking I'm going to get out of there in the time I used to. I just let it take the time it needs to, or I don't go someplace if I'm in a rush because it's not fair to the staff working there for me to expect them to provide the service with the speed that they had before the shortage of staff. I mean, it's not their fault. So I just go with it. And if one place requires mask and another doesn't, I'm just, I got one with me. I put it on. I put it on if I want to. I guess I just don't get very wrapped up into those kind of things. But I'm still think that for me and many other people I'm talking to, this time in history is causing so much stress for people. They are so full of fear and uncertainty and stress and other negative low frequency emotions that tires you too. It's hard to carry those kind of emotions around with you and keep any kind of energy, you know? Welcome, Robert. So glad you're here. We're talking about this topic you brought up, and I think it's great. Do you want, I know you have things you want to say about this. Go for it.
Yeah, I kind of broke this down into, firstly, sorry for being late, my apologies. But I broke this down into, I kind of have my spiel, and then I thought maybe each of us give our sense on the signs of something, of a situation that's too complex. And then perhaps, like we mentioned, guardrails, or, what can we do about it to limit ourselves from the vicissitudes of complexity. And then I just had a couple examples, and I can just start out with my little spiel, if that's all right with you all.
Sure.
All right. So I think the bigger and more complex something is, the harder it is to manage, especially in times of stress. And we all know that life will stress test us. And I think complexity is strongly tied to anxiety. And many people suffering from chronic anxiety or anger even have just built lives too complex to manage. And, there's something we can do about that.
Whoops, you're breaking up.
Actually, it's very, and so sometimes.
Rob, hang on one second. I'm going to do something. Let's try this. Now talk, Robert, because you're breaking up sounding robotic. Let's try that.
Okay, how about now?
So good. I'm so sorry to take your face off, but we need to hear your words.
No, thank you. I'm also I went to the lobby. I had better service here.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. But I was saying, I think a lot of people suffering from chronic anxiety or anger, it's perhaps they just built lives too complex to manage. And I reference actually even this is pretty practical. It's not even that mystical. There's a clinical psychologist that said that a lot of people, it's not even mental illness, it's just complexity. So perhaps the anxiety one feels from trying to navigate complexity too often is their mind trying to solve something too complex for its capacity. Like in this way, I think we're the causes of much of our complexity and problems. And oftentimes things can be as complex or simple as we want them to be. And so it's a choice. And I think it can be very liberating to admit this. Like it's actually freeing to recognize that we're the cause of a lot of our complexity. And it's like, from a spiritual perspective, it's like, just to put a word on it, why not let God solve it for you? Like you can let go of trying to solve the problem. For most of us, I think creation will do just fine without our mind trying to solve every little thing. And you can quite simply just let go. So I had an example here I just wanted to share, and I can give the mic back because I don't want to hang on to it for too long here. But, a cruise ship, it requires miles to turn around. A smaller ship is easier to turn around. So maybe there's value in asking if this cruise ship I'm on is even necessary. And maybe a small ship can meet my needs and give me more agility. So this is an analogy. And the key word here is agility. And agility doesn't mean speed. It means the ability to course correct your direction efficiently. And it's, asking like, how able am I to make course corrections and wherever I'm going or whatever I'm doing as life gives me information and feedback. And it welcomes me to make choices and to set my intention. And so my next step would be to talk about the signs of too complex. And so if we want to get into that, just throw it back my way.
Okay, I'm gonna put your face back on. There we go. So hopefully that'll do it.
All right.
So sorry we had to do that. I think I love that analogy about the cruise ship, and it makes me think about things like our country right now, with so many things gone wrong, and that's the biggest cruise ship I could think of, is trying to turn around a country. But I want to talk just more personally for a moment. When you first brought this topic up, Robert, I thought, oh my gosh, this is one I've learned the hard way. And I'm learning it again. Before COVID, before I moved to Sedona, I had an extremely busy social life, and I loved that. Almost every night of the week, I had, dance rehearsal or a play or a musical. I had plays, other play groups I was doing. I had another social group. I mean, there was just something pretty much 6 nights a week. And then on weekends, I would go do things with one of those social groups almost every weekend, year round. And I just got into the groove of that, and I was really pretty tired all the time, but I was having a wonderful time. There's no doubt about it. But then I moved here, and I had to start over. My friends that lived in Sedona moved away shortly in the 6 months or died before I got here. So I had to start over with local friends, and it was kind of nice to slow it down. And I realized that I had been on this course where it was an adrenaline rush, which isn't good for you. Whether it's happy things or stressful things, it's not good for you. And it felt really good. And I was getting some things done that I had not done for a long time. Like I wanted to write a book for a very long time, and my angels had been talking to me. They had told me over maybe a decade and a half, they said, Ivory, writing will be the key to your freedom. And I really wasn't sure what they meant by that, but I felt that like in my heart, like I knew that that was true. Like I really needed to write books. But I was so busy with my social life that I never made time for it, did I? COVID hit, I've written 2 books during COVID. So, there's another thing. And I think that during COVID, the one thing I did is I dove into my work because that's what I had. I was working from home for 15 months. So what I did was end up having 5 businesses that I run, 5, including Sedona Soul Sisters. So now that COVID's over and I'm back to the office again, now I'm feeling overwhelmed by this and something has to go. That's how I know is like, I feel like I'm juggling, these plates in the air and I can't possibly keep them all spinning effectively. Something's going to fall and crash. So that's all I wanted to share about that right now. Any other thoughts amongst you about this topic right now, Terry Ann?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, I think. COVID changed so much stuff for so many people, and us included. I think sometimes people look at us and they think, oh, psychic mediums, everything's easy for you. But it's not an easy path for us at all. I can tell you when it's your own intuition, your own guidance, that ego gets involved, and it's sort of, we play back and forth with each other, right? Well, I have this going on, so I can't do this. And we try to rationalize and prioritize what is important, what's not important. And as we do that, we begin to get more even overwhelmed, right? We're like following this path. I always equate it to like, recently, Anthony, my son in spirit, said to me, it's like that waterfall and you're trying to swim up this waterfall, right? And you keep going and going, but you're not getting anywhere and you're creating this resistance. And when you just let that water take you, let it flow you, everything then starts to go really smoothly again in your life. So I thought that was a great analogy that he gave me. And I'm trying to work on that, but it is again about juggling, right? We want to come back to that balance. We're always trying to strive for that balance in our life.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, Terry Ann, when you mentioned the word juggling, it makes me think of a note I made here for this, which is the word compromise. And everybody knows we're going to have to compromise. Just part of it, but it's on what are you willing to compromise and choosing wisely. And so I think signs of a situation or a life or relationship or whatever of being too complex is there's a guy that said something to me. He said, it was like my first day as an intern back in my engineering days, and he said, he just came by, I didn't even know it. He said, kiss it, baby. And I was like, what? He said, keep it simple, stupid. KISS. He's like, just kiss it, man. Keep it simple, stupid. And it always stuck with me. So good on him, and he said, set the intent. I said, I think set the intent of keeping things simple. Here, this kind of gets to a more spiritual perspective for me. What it means to me is it's easier to be me during times of uncertainty and change when things are more simple, because the more complex things are, I think it's the less likely I'll be able to stay in that integrity with myself, to stay in the integrity with my morals and values. And what I mean by that is, like, the more complex something is, it's like possibly the more likely I'll have to compromise. And, you know, in the worst case, I think I compromise on something very valuable to me. And it's like, you know, maybe complexity, being in a complex situation, is a tool to determine what really matters to you, also. But, you know, I think if you find yourself having to compromise across different aspects of your life frequently, or across different aspects of yourself, perhaps there's room to simplify. So I guess, like, my way I think I can contribute here on this one is saying, if you feel like you're having to compromise on really important things to you, like, things may have become too complex. So that's that's my 2 cents on. And also, another sign, I think, is if you feel like you're always fighting fires and juggling, like Terry Ann said, like, if you're always fighting fires and it's like something's always going wrong, it's like, okay, like, I'm in control of this. And I also have the choice to, it's like really like a process of letting go, of surrendering to simplicity. And you know, that's kind of ties into, maybe there's some emotions tied into these things too. Anyways, compromise on morals and values. I think complexity, it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous that you'll have to compromise on things important to you. Maybe it's spending time with your children, right? It's like, am I compromising on this? You know, I think simplicity, it's almost like the fear of being bored. It's like, oh, well, if it's too simple, I'll be bored. And it's like, I don't know. I think that might just be the mind playing tricks on you. Anyways, that's my 2 cents there.
Well, let me do one quick thing here on yours, Robert. Take that hand down. There it is. So I agree with that completely. And there's times when, like I was saying earlier, that I took all this on at the beginning of COVID, and now here I am back at the office, and it's more intense, and a little bit of social life happening again, and I can't handle it all. So then it's like sitting down and thinking, which of these things can go? Because something has to go. And it's not going to be my sleep. It's not going to be seeing my family and friends, because that is important to me. That's critical. Something has to go. So, you know, what doesn't feed your soul? What are you doing that really doesn't feed your soul anymore? And sadly, I think many of us are involved in activities and clubs and with people, and even oh great, says my internet connection is unstable. That isn't good when you're hosting the show. Anyway, I've been having problems with that for the last week. If it suddenly I go away, I'll be back. But anyway, I just want to say that I find myself, like, really looking at that, and I'm very, as a Virgo, very analytical. So I will make lists of, you know, what is making the most money, but more important, as least as important, is what am I still passionate about? If I'm doing something that I hate, if I'm doing something that really just feels like a total chore to me, and I have a choice about it, I don't want to do that anymore. I think that's a no-brainer, that thing has to go, right? You know, so I think we just all have to take some time to examine it. And maybe it is friendships that don't feed our soul anymore. Maybe it's friendships that we've outgrown spiritually, that our frequency has gone so high that we don't relate anymore. And that's, you know, a hard thing, but it's a reality on the spiritual journey. It happens multiple times as you continue on. So just some things to think about. What did you want to say, Roz? Whoops, we can't hear you.
One thing that, you know, really helps us.
I couldn't hear you
Hold
at
on.
first. You were muted somehow.
That's weird.
I know.
I think you're good now, Roz.
Yes.
I think one thing that really, you know, what it kind of comes down to is you kind of have to do an assessment of your energy level. You know, how your use of your energy.
Oop, she froze. Let me help her.
Depending on, you know, the type of work you do and what the demand is. This is extremely demanding work. I've had jobs where it wasn't demanding and you could just kind of flow along with things. But I think when you are utilizing your inner energies, your spiritual energy, emotional, etc., you kind of have to really get down to the brass tacks of how much of that you have and how much you can afford to, you know, um, ignore when when your energy is trying to tell you, hey, you know, be be calm, be focused, and rebuild your energy. So it it really comes down to, I remember when all my children were little, and you have 4 children in 5 years, you've got a big load of demand there. And then, working. I had to keep working in alignment with that. And I sort of had to look at my life and really get down to, okay, I can afford to spend this much time doing this, because the primary thing has to be the upkeep, care, and time I spend with my kids. So for that, I mean, it really taught me something valuable. And I think it helps me now. Just prioritizing and assessing is what you need to be more focused on. I mean, I can't imagine trying to write books, at any time in my life, actually, until maybe this time. And I know it's the time, and my angels are nagging me all the time too. So that has to really come. I don't know what's happening to my video, but
I
okay.
turned it off because we were losing your audio, but I just
Yeah.
asked you to start it again. So there
I
you
turned
go.
it off earlier when Robert was speaking.
I saw that. I know.
Because I
Thank
just
you.
thought, we don't have enough bandwidth here.
Thank you, Sedona, for having no decent internet connection. Okay, Robert, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, unfortunately, I think we heard everything you said. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing, Roz. Like, man, you guys pinged a lot of things in my mind. One thing, Ivory, you said, I think you mentioned like people in our lives, and then I thought about how sometimes, I was talking to a friend of mine at one point, and they just were having so many issues with this person that was in their life, and I said, you know what, like, when did you become friends with them? And this person was in their 30s when I was talking to them, and they said, well, I became friends with her, I think we were 16, and I said, wow, a lot has changed. I was like, it's almost like she got grandfathered into your life now. And it's like, were all the conditions and reasons that you were attracted to each other and she was brought into your life back when you were 16, like, are any of those still valid now? And she's like, you know what? Not really. It's almost like we're different people. I was like, it's like she got grandfathered in. And it's so hard to like challenge the notion of whether this person that gave you so much throughout those years should even be in your life anymore. And this led me to thinking about when we're heavily invested in our complexity, like we're very, very invested in it oftentimes. And it's almost like a sunk cost bias. It's like, I can't get rid of this. Like, you realize how much time and money it took me to get this to where it is. And it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean you won't be better off without it. It just means that you put a lot of time and energy into it. And perhaps you had great joy doing that, but having the courage to let go of it. And that is courage. And so I think seeking simplicity in relationships and whatever and decisions can be a process of letting go. And to wrap up this thought, someone I know was buying a house, was thinking about selling her house and downsizing. And she's like, but this house is so perfect and it's just great. And a lot of emotional connection to it, which is life as a human. And I said, are all the conditions, she bought the house 20 years ago. I said, are all the conditions that led you to buy this house, are any of them valid anymore? And because this decision became too complex. I mean, it was just crazy how much we were going through here. And I was like, I think we can make this pretty simple. I'd say 95% of the reasons why she bought that house don't exist anymore. And as soon as she recognized that, it was like, oh, it's like it bypassed that love connection to the home and allowed her, maybe gave her that freedom I'm talking about when we recognize that we're the source of our complexity oftentimes, gave her that freedom to move on. And I think looking back, it was a good chat we had. All right, Ivory, back to you.
Robert, that is so good. Like what you're talking about just brings up so much for me, because I'm thinking about like some signs. If people out there listening, watching this, and they're wondering if there's people in their life that is making it more complex, because the people in our life take our time and attention. That's how that falls into place. So here's a sign, I think a very telling one, that somebody isn't really fitting in your life anymore. When you have a conversation with them, can they relate or respond or come up with anything with what you're talking about? And the same goes, like whatever they are into and want to talk about, can you relate to that? Do you have anything to say in response? If you end up with these conversations where you say something and then they say something on a totally different topic, and you're trying to go back to the topic you were on and they keep changing the topic, it's because they're not comfortable, or they just know nothing about what you're talking about, which causes discomfort. And so they are trying to go to their world, and you can just feel that, like it gets frustrating. You're like, why do people keep changing the subject? And it's because they're not comfortable. And it's not that you're saying anything wrong or bad. Let's be specific here and just say you're on a spiritual journey and you've learned a lot about yourself. You've been reading, you've been taking classes, you've been experiencing interesting things, but your friends haven't even put a toe on that path yet. They have no idea what you're talking about, and it confuses them. It's weird to them, but they care about you and they still want to be your friend. But the truth is, when you come to a situation like that, or if it's even worse, that somebody's really sucking your energy dry being around them, even though they're nice people, then it's really time to think about this, that even if they don't understand what's going on, they'll feel relief if you just bless them and move on. And every time you think of them, send them a blessing. It's not like you don't care about them anymore. It's just you aren't working in each other's worlds. It's just the fact. And maybe I've had that happen, and then later people got on the path, or we had things to talk about. They started understanding what I'd been trying to talk to them about before, and then we had a connection again. Or like Robert said, you meet somebody when let's say you worked together, but your only connection was working together. You had no interest outside of that you shared. So once you're not working with them anymore, it's kind of natural that those friendships tend to fade away if there's nothing more substantial underlying the shared workspace or going to school together or whatever it may be. So don't feel bad about it. It's natural. It's okay. It's attrition with friends. Go ahead, Robert.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like, being in with a friend or something. And it almost what you were telling me, it felt like, needing them to be someone other than they're not, as you're evolving maybe, and they're evolving in their own direction. And I think the blessings of a great friendship are it's somebody that doesn't need you to be anybody other than who you are. And I think about like, okay, if I'm going to walk the walk there, and I'm thinking, I want to be able to stay in integrity with myself and this knowledge I've received from my spiritual journey, while being able to appreciate them for who they are. And it's like, oh my gosh, like that's love. And I think it's the problem for me in the past, as maybe I felt like I was receiving the blessings of advancing in spiritual attainment, is I felt that I would maybe hang out with people that weren't on the same page with me, but we had this great bond from years of being together and sharing experiences. And I would feel myself slip back into something that I felt like I maybe let go of, right? Like we can look at any context there. And And then I would feel bad afterwards because I'm like, man, and I almost wanted to blame them. And it's like, no, 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 no. It's like, can you be happy and support them and not need them to be anybody other than what they are? I mean, that's pretty up there. I think that's something to strive and attain, you know. But on the other hand, you mentioned as well, perhaps at times, to be kind of crude here, it's time to cull the herd and reassess individuals that are maybe in your best interest, energies that potentiate you and inspire you, right? Like our next topic. Man, I had to share that. You brought that out.
No problem. Terry Ann, what would you like to say?
And then too, it's about, right, we're clearing out. It goes back to that inner work that we're doing. We're clearing out. So as we clear out internally, our external landscape changes as well. So it's to be expected sometimes. But I think when people begin their spiritual path or their spiritual journey, they're really not expecting that, right? They're like, oh, everything's going to stay the same and I'm going to be enlightened and transformed and I'll bring others up with me. And it's all very airy-fairy. And then as you're going through this, right, we're clearing out all that internal stuff and we're like, holy cow, like now everything around me is crumbling again. And it's like, what is going on in my life, right? So that stuff has to fall away. And it's natural as a human being that we get into that space and we feel sad or we question, you know, did I make the right choice? Did I do the right thing? But I think when you understand that internally, it always goes back to ourselves, like Robert was saying, internally. When we are focusing on ourselves internally, what could we do better? What are we doing now? Then we are able to more clearly, I guess, accept as reality, right? Our perspective, our reality changes. So we're more readily able to navigate that journey then, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Terry Ann, that's exactly it. And something I just wanted to bring up is I think we can bring unnecessary complexity into our lives by having that thought that, oh, I've learned all of this amazing information I need to share so that I can pull others up with me. Doesn't work that way. If somebody comes to you for help, they ask for your help or they come to you as a client, that's different. They're asking, they want it, they're ready to receive it. But when we go around and we try, I'm just going to say, they might be listening, and I love you guys. Don't take this the wrong way. It's just the truth. I think there's some family members that I tried really hard to like share some things with them, and they weren't ready to hear it. And I think that it did more harm than good, not hideously harm, but it did more harm than it did good. And the whole thing is, no matter who it is, they're where they're meant to be. If they're not on a spiritual path yet, they're not meant to be. If they are just now stepping on and learning the very basics, you're not going to be able to pull them up to your level. They're going to have to decide for themselves to go fast forward, to really dive into learning and experiencing and opening themselves up, learning about their own gifts and practicing them. You cannot make them be where you want them to be. And sometimes in this lifetime, people are not meant to put even a toe on the spiritual path, or they're not meant to get to where you are in your path. Then they may step on and surpass you. It has nothing to do with how long you've been on your spiritual journey. It is what it is, and we need to respect where people are and love them. And Robert, what you were saying, I mean, I'm all about this unconditional love. You must accept people for who they are and where they are and love them as they are, or it's not love. So be kind, just allow people to have their own journey. And if you're focusing too much on other people's journey, it will sap your energy. It'll exhaust you. You'll get stressed. Go back on your journey. What do I need to do? Where do I need to do more work? How can I be a better person? That's all. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, that was awesome. And that's another really great point you made about, okay, what are the signs that something's off here? It's like, if you're drained, if it's drudgery, there's something off, in my opinion. But those are my standards. So I wanted to say earlier, I think, when we talk about what can we do about this complexity, or if we think we're sensing that something's off, and somebody told me about this method. Perhaps you guys are the audience has heard of it. It's where you go around your house, you pick up something and you say, does this bring me joy? And the answer is no. You strongly consider discarding it. And it's like, whoa, what if I did that in my whole life? It's like a purge. I don't know. I don't know. That's it's kind of a dangerous thing to do because you could be in a particular mood. But I thought that was interesting. Being conscious of what am I feeling, and what does this bring to my life, and et cetera, et cetera. And one other thing is, I don't know if you folks remember. I think it was in the previous administration, presidential administration. The president said I think he gave an edict to Congress that for every law that they enact and pass, they have to remove 2 old laws. And that is almost a way of removing some complexity. I don't know how that would fit into my life, but it's kind of neat to think about it that way. It's like, okay, maybe when I'm bringing something into the game here, I'm removing something else. I don't know. I don't think it's that simple, but I don't know how much time we have left, but at some point, the holidays are coming up, and I was thinking that the holidays are complicated, or they've been for me in the past. And I was thinking about why, and I was like, man, I'm just trying to please everybody. And I was thinking, well, A, it's not possible to please everybody. And B, maybe I should focus on what I enjoy doing in the holidays. Maybe that would be best for everybody. And instead of trying to please everybody, if I focus on what me and the immediate people around me, what makes us have the most peace and joy in the holidays, what if paradoxically that's actually what pleases everybody? All right, back to you, Ivory.
I think all that's really important. That's funny you bring that up because it's been on my mind today and even earlier in the show. And I'm just going to say, like, when my daughter was little and I wanted to make Christmas perfect for her, like my parents had for us, and made it just a magical time. And we would make 20 kinds of cookies, and we would go to all these different events, and I would take her sledding. We lived in Prescott, we had a lot of snow then. I would do all kinds of things, and I would decorate the house to the nth degree, and I would be exhausted. Granted, I was younger, so that helped. But every year, especially since she became an adult, she went away to college. And then I started thinking, I tried continuing that for a while. And then I thought, what's important to me? I'm the one here, she might be here. Eventually she moved to Chicago area, and that was years ago. And it's just, if I'm even home during the holiday, what's important to me? And so over the years, I've gone from that down to, I don't make any cookies because I don't eat sugar. I make like one holiday treat. I put up like 6 or 7 decorations. I don't really put up lights. I have a little tiny tree with minimal ornaments on it. And I play some Christmas music, and I get together with my family at Christmas. And I gotta tell you, like every year, I'm actively seeking another way to simplify my Christmas. This year at the office, Roz, you'll get a chuckle out of this one. I made a decision, an executive decision, that Roz and I are not going to try to hang this string of little shiny ornaments in our lobby. It's like a Three Stooges routine. Every year it takes us an hour and a half. They all slide off. We're laughing, but we're frustrated. And I decided we can live without that. You know what I'm saying? We can live without that little string of balls. Like, that's why they're still in the closet. I'm like, I just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So even little things like that, like it felt good to just, I didn't even ask Roz. I just said, we're not doing that this year. I don't think she cared a bit. So those are sitting in the closet, and I felt good. It felt like a little, just a little breath off. I don't have to deal with that frustration. And she doesn't care. I know she doesn't care. So we have other decorations up. We're not Scrooges. But the point being that there's these little things you can do at work. There's little things you can do in your personal life, in your friendships, everything where you could be cutting back. One thing I did, I used to send out 50 Christmas cards every year. I'm an environmentalist, so that became a thing where it's really bothering me. Like I gave up sending most cards anymore because they just end up in the landfill. So I do electronic cards. But this year I sent 2, and to people who I'm worried aren't going to be with us much longer, and they are older, and I know they like cards. So I sent them physical cards, but everybody else gets electronic cards. It's faster, it's easier. makes me feel good. It's another thing I can do to save the planet. But there's my 2 cents on all that.
I agree. I found a solution, perhaps a halfway solution. You can put on the back of your card, or actually after you sign it, you can write "burn after reading."
Actually, I want them to recycle it after reading. I want everything that can be possibly recycled must be recycled, but that's another show entirely. I'm doing that show Sunday.
That's a different show.
It is.
Got it.
Robert, did you get to talk about everything that you had prepared? Because you went to effort here. I want to make sure that we get all that covered today. He's looking. He's checking. He's like Santa, checking his list twice.
Checking his list.
I hope we're on the nice list.
Nice until proven naughty. Oh yeah. I did last one. Hey, thanks for asking, Ivory. I appreciate that. There was the last one thing I think I could add that might be useful.
Okay.
This is me, and we all have our personalities. We all have our astrology, like you mentioned. And so this is just in my experience. I guess for the audience, I believe I'm a Cancer, June 22nd. I'm like right on the cusp of Gemini. Anyways, me, I like to keep, like, if I can like be on the short end of committing on something, like I like to do that to give my more latitude to move around and be more vague when possible. It's like sometimes I find like, wow, I was very specific about what I would do and when I do it, which like there can be something very noble about that. But on the other hand, retaining your freedom by being vague at times and saying like, I don't know, this is where I'll be and this is my intent. But I think it's okay to be simple, right? Like it's okay to add some uncertainty. Life is so uncertain. Life is wildly unpredictable. And it's like, it's okay. It's okay to be uncertain at times, I think. And I actually find a lot of resolve and liberation in being uncertain, because it gives me room as the details get filled in of reality unfolding. It gives me the room to make better decisions. Like it gives, like being vague and maybe sort of being vague with things at times, like it gives me it gives me a smaller ship to navigate. And so as life unfolds, it's like, okay, maybe this is a good thing I was so vague, because it enabled me to make a series of higher quality decisions when things really began to come into fruition. And so the last thing to tag onto that is like, I kind of adopted a more minimalist lifestyle, and it's just having less belongings sometimes makes things less complex. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe when moving, at least, or relocating, having less things makes you more agile. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
100%. I mean, people will tell me they don't think my house is too big for me. I feel like it's too big for one person. And so I really want a small underground home. And my brother's the only one he's an architect. He's the only one who takes it seriously, and he's going to help me have an underground home. God bless you, Alan. You are an amazing brother. But everybody else is like, no, that house isn't too big. And I'm like, it is. And the problem with it, complexity in life can be having too much house to clean, too many things to dust and organize and take care of. And I get stressed if there's clutter around me, which is why my office is the way it is. It's pretty stripped down, but I function better that way. And I like it that way at home too, so that I'm always getting rid of knickknacks, and I don't want knickknacks. I don't want more stuff. I'm always giving it away, selling it, trying to eliminate. I've been doing it for 16 years now, and I can't believe how much stuff I still have. It's a mystery. It's really a miracle of baby Jesus. Stuff keeps appearing in my home, finding stuff I didn't even know I had. But I hope that this show just gave people a really wide, varied view on the ways that you can simplify your life. I do think that it's critical. I think it's critical for your spirituality. If you don't have enough contemplation time and self-reflection time, how can you grow? So something to think about. If you have questions for us, we're happy to answer them at any time. Feel free to put them in on our YouTube channel. There's a place to put comments, or you can email us, and the email address is in the show description on podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. You've been watching the Sedona Soul Sisters show. If you'd like more information about us or our services, visit our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. Tune in next Friday. And I got to look at this. I know you just said what it was. I know. Next week's topic is inspiration, and that's going to be fun. Know that our next 2 shows will be recorded in advance due to the holidays. So there's nothing you can't join us on Zoom, but you can certainly watch on YouTube or listen on the podcast platforms. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.